It's a podcast about understanding counseling and how it works in everyday life. In this episode, we'll explore how the things we don't say continue to have an impact, even when life appears calm and conversations seem fine on the surface. Most people think impact comes from what is spoken, words said in anger, conversations that escalate, disagreements that are left unresolved. But a large part of emotional strain comes from what never gets voiced at all. Unspoken thoughts don't disappear. They stay active internally. They shape tone, timing, and distance. Over time, they influence how people show up without ever being directly acknowledged. You might recognize this in everyday situations. A comment you considered making but decided against. A boundary you felt but didn't articulate. A feeling you judged as unnecessary or inconvenient. In the moment, staying quiet can feel sensible. It keeps things smooth. It avoids complication. The cost usually shows up later. What isn't said often reappears as tension, fatigue, or withdrawal. You may feel less engaged in conversations without knowing why. Or you may notice a subtle reluctance to spend time in certain situations. Nothing has gone wrong, yet something feels heavier. This happens because internal experience still needs somewhere to go. When expression is paused repeatedly, energy is spent holding it in place. That effort doesn't register as stress in the usual way, it registers as background strain. People often tell themselves they're being reasonable. They don't want to make a fuss. They don't want to burden others. They don't want to disrupt things. Over time, this self-restraint becomes automatic. What makes this difficult to notice is that silence is often rewarded. Things stay calm. Others may experience you as easygoing or adaptable. There's rarely immediate feedback that anything is building underneath. This pattern shows up in work settings frequently. You may hold back a concern because it doesn't feel like the right moment. You may keep adjusting rather than naming what's not working. Eventually, motivation drops or frustration rises, seemingly out of nowhere. It also appears in close relationships. You might let small things pass because they feel too minor to mention. You might avoid saying how something landed because you don't want to create distance. Over time, that distance can appear anyway, just without explanation. Earlier episodes explored emotional load and conversational effort. What's unspoken often contributes to both. Holding back requires awareness, monitoring, and restraint. That ongoing effort becomes part of the emotional load you're carrying. Importantly, this is not about always speaking up or saying everything you think. Silence itself is not the issue. The issue is repetition. When the same things remain unspoken again and again, they don't disappear, they accumulate. You may notice this through changes in how you relate. Less patience, less curiosity, less energy. These shifts are often interpreted as personality changes when they are actually signs of internal pressure. Counseling helps people notice what is being held internally rather than expressed, not to push for confrontation, but to understand what has been happening quietly. When people begin to articulate previously unspoken experience, even tentatively, it often changes how situations are felt. What's important here is that understanding comes way before action. Simply recognizing that something has been repeatedly unspoken can be relieving. It gives shape to experiences that previously felt vague or confusing. This awareness also changes how silence is chosen. Silence becomes intentional rather than a reactional automatic. It becomes a decision rather than a default. That difference matters. When people understand the impact of what isn't said, they often become more attentive to their internal signals. Tension becomes informative rather than something to ignore. Fatigue becomes a prompt for reflection rather than self-criticism. Everyday life continues to involve compromise and restraint. That's unavoidable. But when nothing has space to be acknowledged, even privately, the system carries more than it needs to. In the next episode, we'll explore how people learn to stay quiet about certain things in the first place, and how these patterns form gradually across different parts of life. This episode focused on one specific theme, helping bringing it into focus. We'll pause here and carry this forward in the next episode.